I started my KonMari journey in 2015, and listen, most of it was great, but there are still some things that I struggle with. So I wanted to share some of my thoughts from a decade-long career of decluttering. This is not going to be surface level stuff. It's not going to be, basic decluttering tips or tutorials. It's more about the realizations I had along the way, the lessons I learned, and how my life is different now. Let's go. Hey, how's it going? It's Laura, and I help you live a simpler, happier life. And let me tell you, a simple, happy life was not what I was living 10 years ago. I was fighting through postnatal depression after having my daughter. I had taken maternity leave from my legal career to be a stay-at-home mother, and I just went from being this goal-driven, self-motivated, ambitious, independent woman to sitting at home all day with a baby. And I really struggled with that. I really struggled with my identity around that and just the general difference in my daily routine. And all the stuff. I remember when I was pregnant, we had a spare room. I was kind of using it as a walk-in closet. I say walk-in closet just because it sounds better than saying that it was just a dumping ground for all of my clothes and shoes and random stuff. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you move in with somebody, a lot more stuff. Anyway, I was trying to clear it out so that we could make space for a nursery, and my husband was like, why are you bothering to do that? Babies are tiny. They take up hardly any space at all. Yeah, both of us were in for quite a shock in different ways. In general, it's safe to say that I was drowning, and that is when I discovered the KonMari method, and as a consequence, one of the first benefits of decluttering, which is that life is just all round easier when there is less stuff surrounding you. It is so much easier to tidy up, to put things away, so much easier to clean, so much easier to find what you need when you need it. Brings a little bit of peace of mind, particularly if you have a baby. If they start crawling and walking, the less stuff you have, the fewer hazards there are lying around. It's so much easier to prepare meals and snacks when your cupboards aren't like crammed full of different foods and utensils and pots and pans and things like that. Back then I was all about the quick and easy meals. Well, still am. I could go on and on about this. I don't want to bore you. I think I did understand it on an intellectual level, but until I actually experienced it, that feeling when you declutter, you clear out even just a small space, like one drawer, or you declutter your closet and everything just feels a little bit better. You have that great feeling, that sense of accomplishment. Something just feels a little bit easier, a little bit less stressful or less annoying. Now imagine that throughout your entire home, your entire life. The peace, the ease, the joy, priceless. I will say though, even though yes, your home will be easier to manage, your life will just feel easier, it's not some magic band-aid. It's not going to solve all of your problems, I'm sorry to say. Even after you declutter, there are still things that you're going to struggle with, maybe even more than before. There are certain things that I still struggle with letting go of. One of them is my daughter's stuff. I am not particularly sentimental around most of her stuff. I find it pretty easy to declutter because I get to a stage where I'm like, this all needs to go. Get it out of my sight. And she helps now. She's old enough now that she can help, and she goes through the stuff with me. But I do struggle with actually physically handing it over to donate it. I nearly punched a lady in the face one time. Years ago, I was decluttering my daughter's stuff. She was much younger at the time. Again, had no problem boxing up all of the stuff. Brought it to the charity shop. Brought it in. The people who were working there were really thrilled with it, very appreciative. They thanked me. I felt very good in the moment, but then one lady spotted something in a box that I was donating and she picked it out and she said, "Oh, my little girl would love this." The rage I felt, my I had this visceral reaction. Like, my gut reaction was to snatch it back off her and say, "No, this belongs to my daughter," which was so ridiculous. Like, I had already decided I was getting rid of it. It wasn't even something that was sentimental. It was this tiny little plastic toy. My daughter didn't really play. Like, I had no attachment to it whatsoever. But when somebody else tried to take it from me, oh, she nearly got a slap. So yeah, things like that, still difficult for me, even though she's much more grown up now. I still struggle with handing the stuff over, not so much getting rid of it. Another thing that I struggle with, and more so nowadays, like since I've decluttered, is around those kind of like what would traditionally be considered gift giving holidays or events. So Christmas, birthdays, all those types of things. The anxiety it gives me when all of that stuff comes into the house. And realistically, stuff always gave me anxiety. You know, obviously I wouldn't have started decluttering if I didn't have a problem with clutter and if I didn't want it all gone. But I think I had a higher tolerance for it because I was surrounded by it. Whereas now my tolerance for clutter is very, very low. And yeah, it stresses me out. It gives me anxiety when a bunch of new stuff comes into the house. Doesn't help that my husband is a gift giver, big on giving gifts, which kind of ties into this point as well. I live with two people who are not minimalists. Not minimalists at all. I have a husband who never met a mug that he didn't love and wanted to bring home with him. He's one of those people who likes to see his stuff. He needs to just have it all around him everywhere. He is very happy to dump things and let things pile up. He does not see any benefit in like making the extra effort to clear something out when it could just sit on a shelf somewhere. He is very much the yin to my yang. We are two completely different puzzle pieces that just somehow fit together and make it work. He's wonderful. I also have a tween daughter who is constantly growing in and out of things. You know, she's at that stage where she's still discovering herself and she's still figuring out what she likes, what she doesn't like. She's still discovering new hobbies. She's still kind of figuring out even just like fashion, her sense of style, things like that. She's still in school, so that obviously comes with stuff and, you know, a cost. She still plays soccer. She plays the violin. She just recently taken up golf for some reason. But all of these things, she's kind of trying them out and they come with stuff. Listen, raising a kid is not easy and it is not cheap, and it's very like decluttering because decluttering is not easy and it's not cheap. Yes, it can certainly save you money in different ways, but it also does come with hidden costs. A lot of those, like with raising kids, are financial. Now, I've covered the hidden costs in a whole other video, so I'm not going to go into it here. I will link it for you if you're interested, but I will say that being a minimalist or owning less stuff or even buying less stuff does not necessarily mean that you are saving money. In fact, the opposite might be true. A lot of people will talk about how, you know, when they're not buying a lot of stuff or a lot of cheap stuff, they invest more in quality pieces. They spend more on experiences, etc. So you're not necessarily saving money. You could be, but not necessarily. Again, it's a whole other video, so I will link it if you want to do a deep dive. But it's also costly in other ways. Again, like raising kids. It is emotionally and mentally and physically taxing. Decluttering can take a lot out of you. It can really drain you. You know that saying that just because something is simple doesn't mean it's easy? That's what decluttering is like. Yes, you will gain so much from it. Honestly, I do genuinely believe, at least for me, that the benefits have far outweighed the negatives or any downsides, but there are costs, you know, like with kind of any investment you make, there are some upfront and maybe ongoing costs. Again, in the financial sense and in the other sense, it can require a lot of sacrifice. It can require ongoing maintenance and management. So it's not all like sunshine and roses, but for the most part, small little bits of sunshine, the occasional rainbow, the occasional rose, at least a lot more than previously. Which leads me to the next thing, and Marie Kondo is probably going to strike me down for this one, but I do not believe that decluttering is necessarily a one and done process. I will say though, I can see where she's coming from. I think if you go all in on the KonMari method, for instance, and you are, you know, intense about it, you are thorough about it, you follow through from start to finish, and you're at a point in your life, in your career, in your family situation where you're established. No big changes on the horizon. Everything is pretty standard and routine and settled. Then potentially, it could be a one and done for you. There will still be some maintenance. Marie Kondo does say that. She does say that there will be obviously upkeep involved. But I think for most people, it's probably not going to be a one and done. I think it's fair to say that most of us will experience some profound, significant change in our lives, whether that's, you know, having a baby or making a big house move or changing careers or losing somebody you love or going through some sort of health difficulties yourself, or like all manner of things, really. There's so many things that could happen in your life. Maybe even you have inherited or been left with someone else's stuff, like a lifetime of someone else's stuff after they pass away, or maybe they just move and leave you with the stuff. There are just so many different situations in which your life can drastically change and in which you can become essentially a whole other person, or like just a brand new chapter starts in your life and you're not the same person you were previously. This has certainly been the case for me through various seasons in my life, and even with small things, you know, like taking up new hobbies. A few months ago, I started crocheting. Now I have a whole bunch of yarn. Crocheting has basically become my whole new personality. I have enough yarn to open a small store. But I love it. It's not clutter to me, but it is extra stuff. I also started a second business. That has come with its own fair share of stuff. It's also the reason I haven't been as active here online. But your life is ever evolving. My life is ever evolving. I'm constantly going through different phases and discovering new things about myself and letting go of old things and welcoming in new things. And I think that's all part of life. You'll grow in and out of things. You know, I've been doing this for a decade now and I'm still going. There's still things that I'm decluttering, still old layers of myself that I am shedding, still new things that I'm discovering. Every new season, every new phase comes with a decluttering of the old stuff, getting rid of the old stuff, clearing it all away, tidying it all out, and then welcoming in a new season, whatever that looks like to you. Now, speaking of evolving and kind of discovering or maybe rediscovering yourself, one of the biggest benefits that I found, one of the most wonderful aspects that I probably needed at the time, I didn't realize that decluttering would give it to me as much as it did, but decluttering allows you to almost rebuild your life from the ground up. You know, I go through various stages in my life where I'm just ready to hit the reset button. And sometimes it's in small ways, you know, maybe around the new year, or you just kind of get fed up with one thing and you move on to another thing. But sometimes it's in a very big, drastic, I want to burn it all to the ground and start again sort of way. And in both instances, decluttering can really help. You can shed so many layers of your old life. You can unburden yourself from old things that were holding you back. You can make peace with certain things from your past. You can let go of things that were holding you back, things that were just squeezing the life out of you, squeezing the joy and happiness out of you, squeezing the energy out of you. You can start with an almost completely blank slate, depending on how hardcore you are with that, and start again. It doesn't always have to be that intense, but like I said, even if it's just kind of a small, fresh start that you're after, decluttering can really help. It also allows you to kind of, in line with this, to discover who you truly are. When you clear away all of the clutter, all of the things that are distracting you, and you can really focus in on what brings you joy, on what makes you happy. And when you have more space, more time, more energy, you get to know yourself on a deeper level, particularly when you're decluttering stuff and you're facing your past. You're going through all of this stuff, you're making decisions. It's a mental and emotional journey as much as it is a physical one. So you really get to understand yourself a lot more. You confront so many emotions, you confront so many memories, both good and bad, and you release a lot of stuff that maybe you didn't even realize was weighing you down so much until you let it go, until you put that burden down. And then you make space for the new, you make time for the new, you can fill your life with things that mean more to you. You can live a much more rewarding, fulfilling life. It sounds kind of cringy, kind of cheesy, but it's really a journey of self-discovery. Like, you learn so much about yourself through this emotional process, through questioning certain things, through making all of these decisions, through facing those emotions and memories and thoughts and ideas. You also learn to trust yourself a lot. You build this confidence in yourself that, yes, I can make these decisions. Yes, I can take control of my physical surroundings. Yes, I can take control of all of the different types of clutter in my life. It's a really great boost, honestly, and you learn that you can live with less, that less is in fact more, or less makes way for more. You learn that despite what you've been told or what you have experienced, you can actually slow down and savor life. And that is what I have been doing. That's what I have been doing in spades. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to do certain things or have certain things or be or act a certain way, or all of those kind of things that we're told that we should have, that we should always be up leveling, newer cars, bigger homes, etc., etc., the latest technology, all the new gadgets, all the new gizmos. You realize you don't have to keep up with the Jones. Just let the Jones do their own thing. You're happy staying in your own lane, doing the things that light you up. There's also a huge correlation, and I've touched on this, between decluttering or clutter and emotions. When I walk into a messy room, I can feel so many different things. I can feel angry. I can feel resentful if somebody else has messed up the space. I can feel sad, guilty or ashamed if I feel that I have contributed to it. Overwhelmed, obviously, anxious, stressed out, even hopeless, tired, worn out, feeling like, what's the point? How did I let it get to this? Those are all feelings that I have certainly felt. Maybe you felt them too. But when I walk into a tidy, uncluttered space, it's a whole different feeling. When I don't have to watch where I'm walking, when there is a clear path that I can walk, where I'm not, tripping over things or having to watch where I'm walking, trying to jump over things or tiptoe around things. When there's a clear path for me, when there's space for me to move around, when I can sit down without having to clear things off the seat first, or serve dinner without having to clear off the table first. When I can tidy up at the end of the day and it's just a quick process of putting a few things back rather than this big marathon that I just do not have the time or energy or motivation for. When I walk into a space that is just easy, tidy, it gives me a sense of ease and peace and contentment and happiness and satisfaction. I feel much more in control. I feel it gives me a sense of comfort and it gives me a sense of security. You know, I'm a very sensitive and emotional person. I feel things very deeply, very intensely. It's one of the main reasons I know I'm not a psychopath. But physical decluttering or decluttering of any sort brings up a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions. You're facing a lot of emotional stuff, particularly when you're decluttering sentimental stuff, but it could really be anything. You know, you could be feeling grief or loss, or, you know, a big one that I often feel, probably not quite so much anymore, but certainly still does rear its ugly head every now and again, but a feeling of something good being over, you know, a good time in your life being done, being past, those good times that you'll never get back. Yeah, there are so many different difficult emotions that you can face, but there's also lots of good ones too. You know, joy, nostalgia, a feeling of connection, or a feeling of home, or a sense of self, you know, a sense of where you came from, or just wonderful memories. It's just a whole mishmash of things, you know, general feelings, not even around sentimental stuff, but you generally might feel, you know, ashamed of yourself, you know, feel some self-hatred or disgust at yourself for letting it get to a certain stage, or just confusion about how it got to that point. Again, overwhelm, feeling stressed out, feeling unsettled. It's a lot to contend with. And again, if you're like me, but even if you're not an emotional person like me, it can still be exhausting. You're physically tired from decluttering, you are mentally tired from having to make decisions over and over again, and you're emotionally tired from having to face so many difficult things, or just face so many things in general. Even good feelings can be exhausting after a while. You know, you're trying to face your past, you're trying to come to terms with certain things, you're trying to deal with certain things, you're trying to process certain things. It's a lot. But as you confront those feelings and as you move through them, you do learn to deal with them. You do learn to process things. You know, any guilt you feel kind of quickly disappears. You know, guilt you felt about keeping certain things, that disappears as soon as you drop that stuff off at the charity shop. Or any, you know, frustration or negative feelings that you have about how all of this stuff managed to accumulate in the first place, that is immediately alleviated as soon as you clear it out. And sometimes, like, joy can be rekindled. You know, when you find a hidden treasure, when you rediscover something and it brings back wonderful memories, or it reminds you of a wonderful time or a wonderful person, it can really be great also. But it's a lot of confronting feelings, good and bad. So for me, letting go of stuff helped me let go of a lot of negative feelings. It helped me to unburden myself from various different memories or beliefs or things that I was holding on to that I didn't need to. But I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that decluttering is not just about physical stuff. I've kind of touched on this, but there's so much more to it than just getting rid of the physical items that are in your home. There can be so much clutter in our lives, and I think when you start to get rid of the physical possessions, you start seeing other things a little bit more clearly. I think a lot of us start with the physical stuff because that is what we see and encounter on a daily basis, and it's kind of like just a little bit easier to deal with, but there is so much clutter in our lives. Personally, I have identified 9 different types of clutter. I've outlined them in this video right here, but I'll just touch on one of them briefly here, and that is mental decluttering. As you're decluttering, you are forced to make decision after decision. You're forced to confront something and decide once and for all, because I don't know about you, but a lot of the clutter in my home was, and still is, unmade decisions. I didn't know what to do with something. I didn't know where to put it. So I just kind of left it somewhere. I put it in a pile to be dealt with at some undetermined date in the future. And that just like played on my mind. It kept popping up at random times. I felt bad about it. It kept just nagging at me. But when you mentally declutter, you're making decisions, you're closing all of those open loops, you're giving yourself a sense of satisfaction. You know, when you can just tick something off once and for all. That's what mental decluttering is like. It's clearing out all of those unmade decisions. It is facing certain thoughts that you have and making your peace with them or learning to process them. It's just dealing with all of the stuff that is up here. It really helps to bring you closure in a lot of ways. Decluttering has been incredibly cathartic for me in more ways than one. Like, you just have no idea where decluttering will take you. For me, it like basically started a whole new career. Definitely did not foresee that, did not expect that, but here we are. So if you feel like you've done the physical decluttering, but you know, your life still kind of feels a little bit chaotic, still feels cluttered, if you feel like you've only just scratched the surface, go ahead and watch this video next. It's all about the 9 types of minimalism, 9 types of decluttering, so that you can get a head start on things and you can start to really declutter your entire life. Don't limit yourself to just the physical stuff. So until then, go raibh, míle maith agaibh, agus feici mé sibh go luath. Slán!